Welcome to the Solimi Dreams channel. Gently turn off the lights in your room, slip on your headphones or set the volume just right and close your eyes. I hope sleep finds you peacefully, perhaps even before the story comes to an end. So now, without delay, let me softly begin tonight's story. Night showing. It was almost midnight when Ethan pulled his car into the nearly deserted parking lot of the majestic cinema. The theater, nestled at the edge of a forgotten suburb in rural Ohio, had clearly seen better days. Neon lights flickered weakly, and the faded marquee displayed titles from last month. Ethan loved coming here, especially at odd hours, savoring the solitude, the darkened theater, the quiet thrill of isolation. Tonight was no different, or so he thought. Ethan had just turned 26. Tall, slender, with eyes permanently shadowed from insomnia. He had few friends and even fewer social obligations. Movies were his only consistent companions. His small town offered little excitement, but majestic cinema had always been Ethan's sanctuary, a place where reality faded as darkness enveloped the rows of empty seats. He bought his ticket from a bored-looking clerk behind dirty plexiglass. A horror film he'd barely heard of. Nightmare Alley was the midnight showing. Perfect, he thought. The best kind to watch alone. Entering through the heavy double doors, Ethan found the theater completely empty. The seats stretched forward like abandoned graves under a dim, flickering screen. He settled into a middle row seat, the worn velvet fabric brushing against his skin. As the trailers began, he felt a chill ripple down his spine, an odd, uneasy sensation. The opening credits rolled with eerie music, deep notes humming like whispers in the dark. Ethan sank into his chair, ready for the thrill, but as minutes passed, he couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that someone else had entered the theater. He glanced over his shoulder, eyes scanning rows behind him. Darkness stared back. Empty. He shook off the paranoia, blaming the creepy opening sequence of the movie. Yet, just as he turned back, a sudden noise, a slow, deliberate creak, echoed from the rear exit door. Ethan's breath quickened as he turned sharply again. The red emergency sign cast a sinister glow, but nothing moved. He frowned, feeling foolish. Relax, you're alone. You chose this. Ethan tried to focus on the film, but unease persisted like a shadow lurking just outside his line of sight. The story on the screen grew darker, mirrors becoming doorways, reflections revealing twisted figures hiding within the frame. The images unsettled him deeply. Midway through the film, the screen flickered and darkened abruptly. Ethan jolted upright as the theater plunged into silence. He blinked rapidly, adjusting his eyes, heart pounding erratically. What the hell? Suddenly, the screen sputtered to life, grainy, distorted, flickering randomly. But it wasn't the film he had come to see. Instead, Ethan watched in confusion and mounting horror as the screen now displayed an overhead view of himself, sitting alone in the theater. His eyes widened as he stared at his own back, his head silhouetted by dim aisle lights. His blood ran cold. He spun around wildly, searching for a camera, a person, anyone. But nothing moved, only oppressive darkness stared back at him. Heart racing, he stood, knees shaking. Hey, who's doing this? His voice cracked, echoing faintly. The screen switched angles, zooming in on Ethan's terrified face. He stumbled backward, his breath short. It was live. Someone was watching him. Without warning, the theater speakers crackled, buzzing harshly before a raspy, distorted voice whispered softly, "Enjoying the show, Ethan?" His heart froze. "Who are you?" Ethan shouted desperately, spinning around again. His voice trembled, betraying his fear. "We've been expecting you," the voice rasped, filled with sinister amusement. "You always come alone. Perfect." He lunged toward the exit, nearly tripping over the seats. Panic surged through him as he pushed against the heavy doors. They didn't budge. Locked from the outside, he beat against the metal desperately. "Help! Somebody! I'm trapped." But nobody responded. Silence mocked him cruelly. The lights flickered erratically, buzzing with electric menace. On screen, new footage appeared, grainy black and white clips of past patrons in the theater, each alone, each visibly terrified, pleading for mercy or attempting escape. Ethan watched in mute horror as each person on screen met some unseen, grisly fate, disappearing into shadows or dragged out of frame by an invisible force. "You're next, Ethan," the voice hissed, crackling viciously. "No escape, no audience to witness." Suddenly, the projector shut off, plunging him into total darkness. Ethan froze, breathing hard, trying desperately to orient himself. He reached for his phone, hands trembling. The screen flashed briefly, then went black, completely dead, battery drained impossibly fast. "No," he whispered. His voice sounded small, pathetic. A noise broke the silence, a soft, scratching whisper echoing faintly from the corners of the theater. Something moved at the edge of his vision. Shadows crawled slowly along the walls, distorted shapes sliding across surfaces, converging on him. Fear surged through Ethan. He ran toward the stage beneath the screen, desperate for another exit. As he reached the curtain, something cold brushed his neck. A whisper, chillingly soft, whispered directly into his ear. "Stay. Watch with us." Ethan screamed, whirling violently. Empty darkness mocked him. He dove through the heavy velvet curtain, stumbling into a dark corridor behind the screen. Here, old film reels littered dusty shelves, cobwebs hung thickly in the air. He pressed on, coughing, searching for an emergency exit, a window, anything. Suddenly he heard faint laughter, childlike, twisted, echoing from deeper inside. Against every instinct, he moved toward the sound, compelled by terror to confront whatever horror awaited him. Down the narrow hallway, he found a hidden door partially open. Flickering candlelight spilled through the gap. Heart hammering, Ethan pushed the door wider, stepping into a strange, forgotten room. Walls plastered with old photographs greeted him. Images of the theater from decades past, employees smiling stiffly, patrons seated, staring vacantly. A large mirror dominated the far wall, cracked and stained with age. He approached slowly, noticing his reflection warped oddly. Leaning closer, he froze in horror. His reflection smiled while he remained terrified. His mirrored self raised a finger to its lips, signaling silence. Ethan stepped back in terror as his reflection moved independently, mouthing silently. "Behind you." He turned sharply, screaming as cold, dead hands reached from shadows, gripping him with unnatural strength. Faces emerged from darkness, ghostly, twisted visages with hollow eyes. Mouths opened in silent screams. "No, please," Ethan cried, struggling violently, dragged back toward the mirror. His reflection watched calmly, grinning grotesquely. "Welcome," his own mirrored voice whispered. "You're part of the theater now." Ethan's screams fed as darkness consumed him. Sunlight pierced the dawn sky as the majestic cinema's doors opened again. Emily, a young woman with bright eyes and innocent excitement, purchased a ticket for the afternoon show. As she walked through the empty lobby, she paused to examine a framed photo recently hung near the entrance. It showed a familiar theater room, empty save for a single figure seated silently. The caption beneath read, "Ethan Roberts, our most loyal patron." Emily smiled softly, oblivious, and disappeared into the theater, the doors clicking quietly shut behind her. In the darkened lobby, Ethan's figure in the photo shifted slightly, eyes wide with silent, desperate pleading. No one noticed. No one ever did. I hope you've already drifted off into a peaceful sleep. If not, I truly hope the upcoming stories on my channel will help you get there. If you enjoyed this one, feel free to subscribe to my channel. I'd be so happy if you liked and shared this video with your friends. It means a lot and gives me the encouragement to keep creating more stories like this.